probably made like the best promise at the time to myself, but like the worst promise to future self, was like, I'm going to be the rock, that everybody needs, you know, as long as they need it. And like, I'm not going to cry. Like, I'm not going to show emotion. Like, I'm going to be, you know, the guy. I'll be the logical problem solver. Like, I'll make this, you know, this stuff happen.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live the perfect average day? Think about that for a second. Perfect and average. Well, you're going to find that out right now with my next guest, a buddy of mine, friend of mine, Pittsburgh business person, Ryan Scialabba is here. He is a husband, a father, a business owner, best-selling author,
Boom.
and a speaker. And I'm glad to have you on the show today, man. This is going to be good.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped.
I want to know how'd you come up with the title, The Perfect Average Day?
Basically building companies, getting beat down personally, finding the bottom, and then figuring out like how to work my way back out. In 2020, I just like hit a rock bottom that I hadn't hit before. And I figured out that like I was chasing these peak moments of happiness, you know, the win to the win, but it was like most of life was lived like in between those wins. And so I was just trying to come up with the system for myself, like a process for myself to like balance out the highs and the lows. So like I came up with like the perfect average day. And I didn't even really think of it myself. It was just like I was teaching people in 2019 how to build out their perfect day. So I was a part of the problem of like, hey, you want to fly to Greece, you know, for breakfast, and Italy for lunch, and then back to Chicago for dinner for a show, and like I was a part of that. And I realized like that's like a pinnacle, not like what's a day I could live every day over and over and over again from the time my feet hit the floor to, you know, the time I get horizontal at night. So yeah, that basically has been like a 3-year journey of like living that out based on that mentality.
Well, I met you in 2018, that era, right before COVID, 2019, when you were starting to do some of your events. And you were, to me at the time, you know, real estate, you know, you were one of these up and coming real estate gurus, you know, you were on social media a lot, like you were doing it. And I always remember looking at you, I'm like, wow, this is a young guy that's doing things like that. I know that are possible, like, you know, because I'm a Gary Vee guy. Like I'm watching, you know, I like Tony Robbins, and I'm thinking like, well, this young kid, he's out there just doing it. And I'm thinking like, is it real? Like, is he doing all those things, or is he just talking about it? Right. Cause back in the, you know, still even today, there's a lot of gurus, there's a lot of guys doing courses and workshops and live events, and there's people that are trying to be somebody. And when you talk about you were part of the problem, I think I know what you mean, but let's dive into that a little bit deeper. So what do you mean by that exactly? Like you were part of the problem?
So in business, I was, to me, still to this day, like the most honest guy from 2016 to 2019 as far as what I was doing in my business, the wins, the losses, the growth we had. We have all the awards to show it. We have the staff to show it, the HUDs, you know, because I'm a real estate guy. So a big thing was like closing statements. Nobody had them. So like from the business side of things, that was what made me so upset about the industry, was that I just felt like everyone was full of crap. And so I was out there putting all of this, you know, stuff out there, business successes. I had freedom in my business. My girlfriend, now wife, we were traveling 120 plus days a year. Like I was putting all of this stuff out there, but I couldn't look myself in the mirror at home. Like the truth was I had put on like 50 pounds because I was like drinking, and I just felt lost. And I was having a hard time. Like I've realized that a big part of the industry was a good old boys club, the guru club, the speaking. They were all in on the same thing. And I just tied my identity to like breaking through. But at the end of the day, it took me, you know, a whole year of like just bad stuff to like realize that it wasn't anything that I wanted, that I had basically been like drifting for like 6 years based on setting something in the stone like 6 years before, saying, okay, I'm going to grow this big business. I want the biggest building in town. I want the most employees, the most staff. I want to be all over social media. I want to be on stages. Like, I want to be in the crew. You know, I want to be the realest guy on stage. But like, there was a lot of truths. Like,
but that was the goal, though. Like, it was like, it was almost like, all right, I'm in business now. I'm looking up to some of these guys. I got some, there's some people that are influencing that, and all of a sudden, like, now that's the goal. It's not necessarily, I'm sure selling a bunch of houses or making a bunch of deals was still part of it, but like, it was like that for you personally was like, yeah, I'm chasing that,
Yeah.
and for you, going on all the trips, doing all that and having a lot of fun. Yeah, well, it was all actually really happening. And then like you weren't faking it and you were actually going on real trips and you were spending real money and, you did have a successful business. You maybe just weren't being your authentic self. You were just trying to maybe use somebody else's identity and try to see what that was like. You were like borrowing that, then doing it, and then it all came crashing down, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to find myself. Like,
you're young.
Yeah. I mean,
how old were you back in? How old are you now?
So I'm 30 now.
Oh, you're only 30. Yeah. Wow, he's so young. I just
30.
turned 42, and I'm like thinking like, you're only 30, and so
I was 25. You're talking. So when I got started in business, I got my real estate license in 2012. It was my freshman summer of college. So I've been doing this now for like 11 years. So my come up was like 19 to 26. We're not talking like,
it wasn't that long ago.
I wasn't wise yet. I'm still not, right? And I still didn't have my own identity formed. And like a big thing is like 6 months into building my like real estate business, like my dad and I originally started our business together, and 6 months in, he was killed in a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
And
why'd you guys start together in business?
So that goes back a good bit. It goes back to like, so my dad started his career out with U.S. Airways, local Pittsburgh airline. When I was 10 years old, it was the first time the company went bankrupt. So this is late 2002. So I'm 10 years old. For the first time ever, money becomes a conversation in the house. Because at the first bankruptcy, a lot of people got laid off. There was a lot of uncertainty, obviously, in the industry itself. But my dad's pay got cut in half. They did, however, the first bankruptcy, keep their pensions, and the stock actually rose. So their 401ks did better. So they just took a pay cut. The second bankruptcy, though, was 18 months later. They lost everything. So there was no possibility of getting their pay back. So my dad went from saying, back in, this is like, 20 years ago, where $70,000 a year could support one family. Like my mom didn't have to work. My sister and I, we did our vacations. Like it was great. But he lost his pension. The stock went from $87 to $13. So he lost his pension, he lost his 401k, and basically 23 years of progress to something that was completely out of his control. And so the conversation in the house just changed. For like the next 6 years, it was my dad and I were flipping anything we could find. It was lawnmowers, weed whackers, dirt bikes, cars. I would find stuff on Craigslist. I would find stuff on eBay. He would fix it up, and then I would sell it, and we would just make this money because we had to do something to make up the income. My mom had to go back to work. So just a lot of the conversations changed.
The struggle was real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're saying that sounds kind of cool to be able to do that with your dad. Like as a kid, to be able to go have like a little side business with your dad where you're like, that had to be kind of cool,
right? It was a game. I mean, it was a game.
Did he teach you that, or did you come up with that?
So
or like, how'd that come about?
It was just like,
because Gary Vee talks about garage selling and doing all that kind of stuff. Like, how'd you and your dad come up with this idea to do that?
It was literally like necessity. Like it was just, he was like, he could fix stuff. So like people would send him stuff to fix it, and they would be like, hey, I can't fix this. If you could fix it, you could sell it.
So he was the fixer, you were the salesman.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like this is right when Craigslist was getting real big. So I was, now I'm like 15, 16 years old. And
you grew up with a computer in your hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I was good at like finding, my thing was actually concert tickets. So like as soon as I got my driver's license, I would go and I would buy tickets day of the show. super cheap, sometimes get them for free. And then I would go out to Star Lake and I would sell them back, and I'd come home and make a haul. Yeah, yeah.
But can you give me any Taylor Swift tickets? Because
Yeah, right.
like my sister's looking for some for my niece, man. She can't get any.
Yeah,
so.
so that was the thing. We did all kind of stuff. I mean, it was car speakers, anything we could get our hands on to kind of generate that additional money.
And did your dad ended up losing his job completely? Like
no, so he stayed with the company,
and then he was helping you do the split business.
So we were doing that, and then what ended up happening was there was a lot of guys that had survived basically through all of this, were unfazed, had rental properties. So my dad was like super interested in that. He was like, hey, like there's a couple of guys that, are flipping houses that have rental properties and stuff, and they're hounding him like, this wouldn't be a problem if you would have just listened to us. So like real estate kind of became an interest of the both of us, and like I got obsessed. So by the time I left high school, I was ready to go into real estate, but I thought that the way to be successful in real estate was to be an agent. So like I just had no idea.
Have the billboard, have the fancy face on there?
Yeah, it was the only thing I knew.
Right?
It was the only thing I knew. So that was the first thing I did was I went and got my real estate license.
Did you go to college at all?
Yeah. So I went to a small high school. I was good for like D3, some D2, for football.
Oh, okay.
But wasn't like gonna really go anywhere. And a big conversation was about, hey, if you go D3 and you work really hard in academics, like then if you quit football, they're not going to take your scholarship away. But if you go D2 and something happens, like we're not going to be able to afford college. So we went all educational. So I ended up going to Allegheny College, which is up in Meadville.
Yeah.
At the time, it was number 21 most rigorous school in the country. I didn't find it to be that way.
Wow, that's probably like any of those other lists that are out there, right?
Yeah.
I think you can get on those lists.
Right.
That's all marketing.
But 2 weeks in to football camp, I got hurt. It happened. And I wanted to quit. Quite frankly, it just wasn't something I was interested in. I was really interested in real estate.
Making some money, right? Like grinding.
But my parents said, hey, you need to get a degree. So if you go take a risk, you have something to fall back on.
No safety net.
Yeah. You always have something to fall back on.
Does everybody? I feel like all of us have that story.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say.
Like
it's part of the American dream. Have a safety net, and then maybe you go try something.
Yeah. So what's really funny about my experience in college, so I only went there for 2 years. I got most of my education on wing nights, on Thursday wing nights with our professors. So this was what was really interesting about up there. We had 3 very extremely successful professors. One had a real estate portfolio of like 1,200 homes in Florida.
Wow.
Another one had built and sold a business for $125 million.
What?
And the third one was just like,
so
had been
hobby.
in a bunch of different stuff.
So being a professor was their hobby.
Exactly.
It's like something to give back.
But do you think we were allowed to talk about any of that in class? I was on an entrepreneurship track for business management, and we were sitting there talking about Peter Drucker's management theories. Yet you've got 3 guys that have had massive success in different industries. We weren't allowed to talk about that.
And they were okay with like being there, not be allowed to talk about it. Because I'm thinking like if me and you, like when we're 60 and we want to be professors, we ain't gonna open the textbook. I'm not even gonna open the textbook.
Exactly.
They don't even want me to open the textbook.
Exactly. So that's what I said. So I got my education on wing nights. So there was 3 of them in different times.
That's cool, man. It's like a Goodwill Hunting.
Take a small group of us, and that was where we talked about real business and we talked about real estate and stuff like that. And so what ended up happening was my entrepreneurship professor was like, hey, school will always be here. You go take the risk now while you're young and you have nothing. Yeah, it was the opposite. And so that's when it was like, okay, we're going to go give this real estate thing a shot. So,
what'd your mom and dad say?
So my dad was like kind of making moves in the back end of this. That summer I had gotten a job working construction. So I got to go work with a buddy. I ultimately got fired from it like very quickly, but we did build a house. So that was kind of cool. So I got to see the construction of it, and I worked for a flipper. But right before, for my 20th birthday, so this is March of my sophomore year of college, my dad surprised me with tickets to a flipping seminar.
Ooh.
Yeah. He's like, yo, come home. We're gonna go this 3-day weekend. He's like, but we're not buying anything. We're just gonna go check it out, see if we want to do this.
I'm gonna take the offer at the end.
So it was 25 G's, and like 3 days later, we were real estate investors. But I always talk about it. Like I joined an amazing like education program, and it was FortuneBuilders. So it was Than Merrill, Paul Sajan, the guys that flipped houses on AE for years. They had the systems and processes to actually put real business in place. Like that was my true college
legit.
education.
It was like a legit, like
it was awesome.
Because you just like I see like all those things, right? And it's like there's like a million of them. It's like you never know like if it's a scam or if it's like the real deal. It's hard to tell the difference when you're just outsider looking in, right?
It was the most comprehensive real estate education platform I think that's ever been put together. And that's why I was with those guys for years. I ended up going coaching and speaking for those guys. I respect them so much for what they built, but here, the thing that they did that nobody else did was they taught you how to learn and take action at the same time with the way they set up their curriculum. So you would learn a little bit of stuff on week one, just give you enough information, and you couldn't schedule a call with your coach until basically you had confirmed that you went and did what they told you to do. So over that first like 12 weeks, I mean, we were out there making it happen, hanging bandit signs, like on the telephone poles, sending letters, talking to sellers, like doing it. And but yeah, so you couldn't move forward through the program.
What was your dad? So you and your dad did that together. What were those conversations like behind the scenes? And like, what was it like when, like he learned the program and he's like, did you guys like start chopping up responsibilities?
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I'll do that. You go hang up the signs. I'll go do this. And
yeah. So it's like funny. So like two things happened. So the weekend, so the Monday I went back to school and I was like, hey, starting a real estate business. All my buddies in the dorm were like, just dogging me. They were like,
they're probably all
bro,
drinking.
it's a waste. Yeah. This is a waste. Like, you're never going to make this happen. You're never going to make this happen. I was filming like my first videos for my new website, which I built on like GoDaddy. I used all their stuff. I borrowed a camera from the film department, hung a white sheet up, put a shirt on, and I was like, hey, this is Ryan Scialabba from Greenlight Homes. I'd love to buy your house. Like, it was that basic. But those guys all dogged me. Second thing that happened that was cool was, so my dad was supposed to be marketing, sales. My dad was going to manage construction and manage properties because the first thing we wanted to do was buy rentals. However, I had a $25,000 bill to pay off to him. So we made a deal. And it was, if I could get a deal done, no matter what it was, wholesale, flip, or buy a rental property, before I went back to school, I could take the year off and we would go all in on it together. 2 weeks before, I closed my first deal for $6,000, a wholesale property. So, but all that was proof of concept. It was like, I can do this. And it was permission for my dad to be like, okay, we can go all in. But little known story, 3 months in, I actually fired my dad from my bedroom in his house, which is just like, pretty funny. I was like, hey, step into my office, which was my little desk in front of his bedroom. And I was just like, we need to do more. Like, you gave me a budget of $600-700. I was working a couple other jobs at the time and still going to school. But I was like, we have this budget for marketing. Like, we need to be taking action and doing this and talking to sellers and this and that. My dad, like, I found out like he was an engineer brain. Like, he was an amazing mechanic.
Yeah.
And a tinkerer for a reason. Like, at that time, like, no, it was like, let's go make a mess. So I was like, hey, you're out of the day-to-day. Like, I'm going to go bring in leads. I'm going to bring us deals. And then I'll bring you in when we need to figure out what we want to do with them, or we buy one and you go manage like the construction. But yeah, so like I said, 6 months in, he was hit by a woman texting and driving. And it was just like, now what?
I mean, that's got to be tough from like just two different sides, right? There's like that relationship that you and your dad were forging and bonding with, and to lose a parent like that, suddenly, because you had to be a young guy. I mean, you couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, we were on the way to a closing.
How old was he? I mean, like
he was 48,
and you were on the way to a closing, so you were expecting him to like like meet you there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. We had a closing at 5:30. He was on his way home from work.
And he just never showed up.
Yeah. Just wouldn't pick up his phone. And I was like, yo, dude, like, what are you doing? And then I got 2 phone calls. One was my stepmother at the time, just absolutely losing her mind. I couldn't even understand what was happening.
Yeah.
The second one was from sheriff, and they were like, meet us there. But
reminds me of when my sister called me and told me my brother got killed. It's just like instant. It's like out of nowhere. You can't prepare yourself for that kind of feeling that goes through your body.
It's true shock. I looked down and I was doing 110 miles an hour. I was like, whoa, like what's going on? And I went, and then it's just like, and the whole process of you just like death is a business was, and I like had to learn like that hardest lesson, just like you, like at such a young age of like, you go to the hospital, they're like, okay, there he is. And the next thing I know, I've got like 6 voicemails, funeral parlor, flowers, estate attorneys, like ambulance chasers just blowing me up of like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. And like, luckily I'd built some relationships. That's why I'm so grateful for like, another reason why I'm so grateful for like my just its experience like early on and the relationships I was making, because otherwise I would have been lost. But like inside of Fortune Builders, like they had asset protection people. We were learning about that. So I had someone I could call and make sure I wasn't getting, fleeced, and I had made great business connections like early on that were like, hey, no, this is what you do. So like I was able to like kind of bury the emotion for a minute and like handle what needed handled, because my sister was a minor at the time. I know there's going to be insurance money. I know there's going to be a state involved. I know there's going to be a big investigation and prosecution. Like, this is going to be a mess. My dad had just gotten remarried. So like that's just
complicated.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, this is going to be intense. So like
you went in action mode.
Yeah, dude. I buried it. I was literally, I left. I walked out in the hallway in the hospital, and I could, I'm sure we'll get to this at some point. Like I probably made like the best promise at the time to myself, but like the worst promise to future self was like, I'm going to be the rock that everybody needs, as long as they need it. And like, I'm not going to cry. Like, I'm not going to show emotion. Like, I'm going to be, the guy. I'll be the logical problem solver. Like, I'll make this, this stuff happen. And that was like what I did. I didn't even, it's just like some like messed up now. Like, I didn't even cry for a month until I was in the shower, and it just like hit me.
You slowed down finally.
Dude, I like passed out.
Yeah, you're finally, the release probably
so hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, you probably went into action because you're going so fast. And again, even if something like this doesn't happen in your life that's that dramatic, all of us humans in America are going so fast, we don't even take the time to notice what's actually happening to ourselves, our lives, our relationships. And that's why meditation, I think, is so so meaningful to people. What was it like after? So you go through all that stuff, all the legal stuff, all the paperwork stuff. You still got to figure out how to make money. So you're probably out still, trying to get this business going. Yeah. What was
back to it?
How did you end up meeting your business partner? Because I know Arch. When did you meet him? How did he come into the picture? Because it was going to be you and your dad, and then you were kind of by yourself. And then tell me that little story real quick.
So I was trying to figure it all out. I used to tell people I took like 6 months off trying to figure myself out and this and that. I went back like a few months ago when I was writing the book, and I was like, holy cow, dude, I was posting. I was like back. I literally had a post 2 weeks after. So he passed on October 8th. It was like October 26th or something like that. And it was like back to the grind. And I was like, holy cow, man. Like, I just didn't know that I went back to it that much. So I tried to do it all for the next 2 years. I was wholesaling. I tried to flip houses, manage construction, like get it up and going. Fortune Builders took me in. I had done a lot of deals. And so they brought me in as like a low-level coach, like basically like an entry-level coach, so I could get some consistent income. But ultimately, I ended up meeting Arch because we were chasing the same deal. And he was a boots-on-the-ground guy, so he did all of his business in Southside neighborhood in Pittsburgh. And he was building a house across the street from a seller that was going through foreclosure. I had mailed him And basically we figured out while we were both on the appointment that like we were working against somebody. Well, I ended up finding him on Facebook, and I shot him a message, and I was like, hey, I think we're working with this guy. How about we work together and not like shoot each other at the knees? Like I could sell this. If I get this thing deep enough, like I can sell it and we're gonna split it and make some money. He was like, cool, come down, check out what I got going on. And dude, that was like the coolest moment for me. Because he showed me all these projects he had going on. We rode around this old like Verizon van. He told me I had 50 rental properties. So like I got to see where I wanted to go. And it was basically like, oh, I want this. And that was like, I was searching for that for 2 years. And I was like, oh, I want, this is what I want. So then we ended up figuring it out, partnering up together. So let's buy one house. We'll see how it goes, see how we work together. But we split. The coolest thing about him and I is from the very beginning, we split our responsibilities to where now, today, that everything is vertically integrated inside of our companies. Like our original agreement that when we first started was like he'll manage construction and properties and I'll manage sales and operation. It's just like funny how now there's 30 people in like the organization, and we're finally back to where we originally started, which is he's managing a construction company and a property management company, and I manage an acquisition company and a brokerage. So it's just like, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like full circle.
Yeah.
And then I think, you were telling me a little bit, and this is where I got to see you, is from like your social media, right? Because that's how I at first found out about you, is I saw like the Ryan Scialabba that is, being like the
guys flipping a couple hundred houses a year.
Probably like the Fortune Builder guys. Probably like, hey, you're trying to emulate.
I was trying to speak.
You're trying to emulate that stuff. So talk about you did all that, and you were, you said in the beginning of the show that, you were in the inside, you just didn't feel right? It just didn't, felt like, it's like, man, like this is like clunky, right?
Yeah.
So talk about like what happened at COVID, what was that moment, right, that you had that you're just like, wow.
So there was like a lead up. There was a little bit of a lead up in that I was speaking, I was on podcasts, we were doing vlogs. So like you're
more of a marketing guy than you were doing anything,
yeah,
right?
Because I wanted to build this presence up and I wanted to go speak and everything. And I got in all the rooms. And the problem was every time I thought someone was going to be the next person to look up to, they were somebody in business, but their personal life was in shambles. Or they were completely full of crap in their business and their personal life. Their wives hate them, they never saw their kids, and their business sucked. So it was like all these people that were like people that everyone was aspiring to be. I would get close to them and I would be like, I just had this journey to the top of the mountain, and then the person I'm standing next to is like, wasn't even worthy to be next to me in my mind.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was I realized that I was that person, but it wasn't because of I didn't do the things I said I was doing. I did more than most people had done in that industry at that point. It was, I just didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. Like, why was I going to try to speak? Why was if all it was doing was adding stress to me, making me miserable, keeping me away from my business, my girlfriend, I was just like, man, this is not what I want to do or be. And I had a project go bad. We were building out a podcast, building out a mastermind company, and me and the guy ended up splitting up. And it was at that event where it was just like Arch and my now wife were like, right, like it's time to come home, man. Like you're just chasing, we don't even know. Arch always said like I had this chip on my shoulder, and
you never probably slowed down to like
identity,
actually like
no.
You probably never slowed down to like figure out like why you
I always said I was doing things in honor of my dad to build a lifestyle by design.
That was just a cover.
I always said that stuff.
That was just like you've tricked yourself into like you almost tricked your own self into like making it about your dad, so you never actually had to make it about yourself.
For myself.
Yeah,
exactly.
Wow.
And so what happened was I realized that at this event. So we built up this whole thing. We were selling. There's a lot of money in the room. And at that event, I just had this breakdown. And I was just like, oh my God, like I got here.
Was that when you were doing that stuff? Like when the events
man.
I was coming to, like the Top Golf?
So that was like just the local stuff, dude. We had a national.
Oh, okay. I remember going to like a Top Golf event or something like that.
That was just a little local thing.
That was like kind of like get you started, little practice session.
25K, like we were building it. And I just had this breakdown of like, I got here. I'm here. I have arrived everywhere 6 years ago I thought I would want to be. And I got there, and it wasn't anything that I thought it was going to be. It was lonely. I wasn't happy. It was stressful. I wasn't around good people. My business at home was suffering. My relationship with my girlfriend was suffering. I was suffering. Like I said, I put on like 50 pounds. I was drinking almost every single day, high all the time. Not on like, I wasn't like high on like heroin and stuff like that, but like I was doing a lot of different stuff. I was just doing stuff,
masking the pain,
and just never wanted to sit down and ask myself the question. So that day that I flew home, you would have thought that was rock bottom.
When was that?
This was November of 2019.
Okay, just a few months before COVID.
So you would have thought that was rock bottom.
You thought it was rock bottom.
I thought it was rock bottom.
That was the worst thing I ever had. But other than your dad, like probably dying, like that was that was the you thing.
I felt like
you did that to yourself. Yeah.
I couldn't look in the mirror at myself anymore. Have a conversation with myself. I was a fraud to myself.
Did you ever tell your wife or Arch or anybody else in your life that?
At that time, no.
So you just kind of kept it on side.
At that time, no, because it was all putting it out there.
Yeah, putting the show on.
Just putting the show on. And yeah, so that was when it really. I call it the slide. That was when it.
I mean, that's in your book, right? The drift, the slide, then rock bottom. So you were drifting
for 6 years
during those years, and then the slide was
a short, fast. Get to the top of the mountain, realize you're about to fall. Take your pedals off the bike and ride down to the bottom as fast as you can. Is what I did.
And so you came home from that event and realized it was like life was like not what it was cracked up to be.
But then COVID happens.
Then it really stopped you dead in your track.
And here's the thing. Business-wise, crushed.
Yeah, homes
we pivoted. Well, we shut down for 40 days. We went down to Florida. We got our heads right. We redirected the company from what we were doing to building out a portfolio that said they'll never shut us down again. So more of a quick cash operation and a wealth building operation. Shifted the company, everything. So from, again, the business perspective, what everybody saw was we were doing nothing but winning.
You were. I remember I was scared to death. I've never been in this game before. And I remember I was like, I had a couple extra bucks, and I remember loaning you money to do a deal. And I was like, my first hard money loan. I was like, wow. I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to pick this guy. Yeah. And I picked you because you had integrity for the business stuff.
Yeah, through all of this, I operated. I've always been an operator, no matter what.
I got my interest. I got my money back. I was like, dude, look at this.
I can remain logical regardless, because from 9 to 5, that's what I am. But outside of that, I was a mess. So up until it was now August of 2020, so almost a year, I put on an additional 40 pounds. So I was the heaviest I ever was. I was drinking every single day. I showed up to our quarterly company outing. It was a canoe trip. I was on a 9-day bender.
Would you drink by yourself? Did you go out with buddies?
We was partying, man. It was everything.
It was people from work, people for your wife, your girlfriend. Would she
Didn't matter.
So everybody was doing it with you. So were you the leader, or were you just joining there? They were already.
I'm a big energy guy.
Yeah.
I can ride it. And that's just what would happen.
Were you the one saying, "Hey, we're gonna go do this," and or were you a combination
of everything?
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh man, I really don't want to do something tonight. All right, one beer. Right, as your buddies, one beer, and then we have a couple beers, and I would just woo, and we would go, and then it'd be 3, 4 in the morning, and then but I'd
go back
to work. In hangovers, so I'd get up and we would crush. Well, I was on a 9-day bender, and I basically was absent at this point. This was the bottom. I showed up. I never went to bed. Showed up in the canoe trip, hammered drunk, in front of the whole company. And we float, and I'm thinking everyone's having fun. I'm having fun, partying. almost drown in that river, like get caught in a current. This is how hammered I was. I almost drowned in knee-high water, like high current knee-high water. It's probably like the most embarrassing thing ever. But I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. Like I was basically like, I was blacked out. Arch grabbed me after that trip, and like first time we'd ever
he gave you a dad talk,
right?
didn't he?
And he was just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah. Gave you like a dad talk.
And I didn't have an answer for him. I don't know. He's like, well, you better figure it out, bro. Like, look around. Went home. That wasn't even it. Went home. Em was partying. My wife, she was partying the same way. This is probably the most important part of this whole thing. She was partying the same way. Went home. I was like, I'm done. Passed out. Slept till the next morning. Whatever. We ended up partying that day again, and her and I got in a big argument. Can't remember what the argument was about, but basically me just being a jerk. Got in a big argument. She got on the phone, so I blew up. She thought I left. I didn't leave. I went downstairs. She got on the phone with a girlfriend, and she was crying. She was very upset, and she proceeded for basically the next 2 hours to tell her friend like who I really was. So like I heard the mirror. Like I couldn't stare myself in it, but I heard it from the basement.
What'd
and it was
she say?
Just like, I don't know where he is. I don't know where he went, where he's gone. She wasn't talking about physically. She's just like, he did no spirit, no, I don't know where we're going. He's aggressive. I'm afraid. Like all of these things, like he's intense, which I am, but like I've had like, those were all positive traits in business, but like my wife was afraid of me, you know? It was the drinking and everything like that. And it was like really bad. It was really bad. I woke up next morning. I wrote her a long letter and I said, I'm going to the woods for a couple of days. I wasn't like, I'll never go out there and say like I was going to kill myself. Like that's not, I was very depressed, but I was lost. But I'm logical and I'm like, life is amazing. I just need to figure this out. I need some clarity with myself. I need to stop and like just sit. I did. I went like an hour and a half north. I hiked, and it was at the same day that Matthew McConaughey's book Green Lights came out. This like weird sign. And I hiked. I stayed in the woods. It's crazy. I just hiked and I listened to the book. And it was one of those like weird moments in life, right? And I would just sit and I'd listen to a little bit. I'm just like, man, wow, okay, figure this out. Came home to a letter, you know, because she was terrified. She didn't know. Like I turned my phone off.
Have you ever done that before? Like, have you ever just like left and went to the woods for 2 or 3 days before?
I was just.
Is that even done? Like something like if anybody would ever ask, like, oh yeah, Ryan's happy place is the woods. That's just where he goes to figure things out.
I mean, I like to hike and stuff, but dude, it was just like.
But you've never done that.
I was
before.
Just like, I'm done. And that was basically what the letter said. Like, I'm done with everything we are doing.
Oh, you didn't tell her you were coming back?
I just said, I don't know.
Oh,
I was like, I don't know. Okay. I said, I don't know
I'm putting myself in her shoes.
I said, I don't know when I'll be back.
Yeah, women don't like uncertainty. And they definitely don't like abandonment.
It was intense. I didn't know.
No, that's okay.
Doing, right?
All right, gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just telling the truth of what happened. So you came back to a letter. So I came back to a letter. She comes to find out she's been going. She felt the same exact way I did, lost, like, you know. It was just like we were. I just say like we were both drifting. And it's just funny how, like, so we sat down, we talked for hours, crying, like, just let it all out, you know? And it was, like, the biggest emotional release I'd probably ever had, like, in my life. I think for her, too. But it was like the day one conversation that, like, we should have had when we were, like, first started dating. Like, who are you really? Where do you want to go? Like, how are we going to get there? Like, how are we going to do this together? Like, how do we want to communicate to each other? Like, what do we want our days to look like? Because all we were doing really was actually saying all the things we hated about our life. But then it was like, okay, we need to find some sort of like positive spin. Like, what do we want it to look like? But we didn't like have the answers, you know, to what we wanted to do. We just knew we needed to make a big change. And I'd always been a big follower of Andy Frisella, Ed Milet. I mean, those dudes. I've been in Arte pretty much since the beginning. I think I was like one thing late, and it was right when he'd come out with 75 Hard, and I sent Em the podcast, and she was just like, "Yep." So this was like, I'm talking like a week. So it was like August 19th of 2020 was the canoe trip. The 26th is when we found out about 75 Hard. September 1st was when we started. That was the coolest experience like I've ever had in my life, because it was just, for timing purposes, like it was the most needed. We spent 90 minutes a day working out together, sober. We got sober. I like beers now, you know, but like for that time period, like we were sober. Basically put the rails up,
discipline
in our life. But the coolest part was our conversations and like really learning each other. Like I got to know my future wife. She got to know me, not for all of our outside influences that we let control us, but like then we got to like draw our line in the sand. And that was like the most valuable thing that I got out of it. Like, yeah, we lost a bunch of weight. We got in shape. Like we got mental clarity. It was also the most, since our run up in business, it was the most that our business grew in a 75, 90 day period that like it ever had. Like we made so many adjustments in business. And I just had this clarity and like revived energy. And day 76, we celebrated. We got hammered drunk. We partied. We ate like shit. We woke up the next morning. That was worse than the day before we started, because we felt like we had just thrown it all away. That wasn't the truth, but like we felt like we threw everything away that we had just been working for. And we were like, okay, how do we do something that is sustainable, like within our lines and like this and that? And that was just when we started like kind of developing like our own thing. So this is now a couple of months after that. We were going down to Florida, and she was on a girls trip in Tampa, and I was over Gainesville racing motocross. It's like my revived thing. And, I get a text, "You need to call me." And I'm like, well, I was sleeping in the camper with the dog last night. Like, you're on a girls trip in Tampa. Like, so if anyone messed up, it was you. You call me. I was being a jerk. And she called me. She's like, I'm pregnant. And I was like, oh, I'm about to go to the gate. Like, that have waited like 3 minutes. Like, I was like, how am I supposed to race? You know, you tell me this, and she's crying, and she's like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, well, we'll figure it out. Like, let's talk about it. Like, drive over here. She just, and it was just the uncertainty. Yeah. It wasn't like
you went in the logic mode. She's getting emotional. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just like, what are we gonna do? And I was like, we're gonna figure it out. Like, what do you mean? We're gonna figure it out. Like, we're not getting, like, we're not making any rash decisions here. Like, let's go confirm you're pregnant, and let's make a decision. I knew exactly what I needed to do at that time. I'm gonna need more clarity ever in my life than I've ever had. I'm gonna do another round of 75 Hard. So we both did it again, but this time it was like, okay, I'm gonna do it this time with the goal of coming off of it with a sustainable lifestyle, you know, a clear vision for my family, my companies, like in something that's sustainable, not something I do 75 days a year, go off the rails and then, you know, come back. So it was basically like putting those bumpers up.
It's not a fad
in my life. Yeah. And, you know, and that was cool. And like, dude, like literally that was when I was like, okay, we've always been lifestyle business guys. Like if we're going to do business, like it better be fun and we better have freedom. But this is where I really put the boundaries in of like, no, like this is when my wife and I go to the gym. This is our date time. Like, and it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the day, you know, like this is when I do drum lessons. Like this is when I do X, Y, and Z. I put all those things in my calendar. And the craziest part was my team didn't give a shit. Nobody cared. Nobody even realized. And it was just like, whoa, if we back off, and I started realizing, wait, they don't want us there. hovering over their shoulder. Like, they want to be able to collaborate. They don't want us in every little problem. Like, so, and I was like, wait, nobody cares. Nobody actually cares at all. Like, I'm going to start taking care of me consistently. And then I was like, and then ever since then, because I've been like actually being selfish with myself and my routines, and now my son and my wife, I put them first. Like, my businesses have, like, now I can say businesses, multiple companies, and they've all grown a crazy amount. Like, we have an amazing team, and yeah. So I don't know where we started on that, but that's the whole thing.
The drift,
that's the whole story, man.
The drift, the slide, the rock bottom. The rock bottom was when I think you were downstairs and your wife was upstairs talking about you, and you kind of got to hear it, and then you went to.
That was the mirror.
You went to go deal with it, and you went through that process. I really appreciate you sharing that. I know that's yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people know that story. That's an amazing story. I would like to know, so there's the relationship with your wife, right? Which is probably the most important relationship. But, at the same time, like, what was happening with you and Arch, when Arch had that dad talk with you and said, like, you got to get your act together. Like, what was that relationship at that same time, like, going through? Like, was it?
So, like, it was just weird because business-wise, like, we were good. Like, we've always been very good at, like, separating.
Do you guys go deep together, like, anyway, or not really? Like, or
no,
like,
and so that was what was, like, we were just business partners.
Yeah, you guys were just working and making
what ended
money.
up happening, too, was because, like, Arch, like, I'm going a certain direction in my life. Like, I want family and kids and things like that. Like, Arch has a different view of life. And so, like, as I started getting more involved in that, and he started finding the things that he wanted to do, there was personal separation. We weren't friends and business partners anymore. We were just business partners. And that was really tough. And
tough or weird?
Both.
Why was it tough?
Because I felt like I was losing my best friend, but like keeping my business partner. But then it was just like, wait, we could still be both. We just do different things. Because I mean, for 5 years we did everything together. Like, we liked all the same stuff. And
you guys did the fun stuff together too.
Yeah, we did everything together. Gotcha. And then it was like, okay, wait, now we're really starting. Both of us are starting to figure ourselves out and kind of become. I'm like, okay, I like to camp and do motocross and like be with my family and and go to the gym at certain times and do this stuff. And I like this certain set of music. And he's like, well, I like to travel and I like this certain set of music and I want to be away. So it was just like, we had to figure our new selves out and then how we were going to work together. And I'm not going to sit here and say that went smooth. He's about 10 years older than me. Yeah. 10 years more wiser, 10 years more experienced.
Yeah. He got a lot of better looking hair too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's got that dude's a cool dude, man. Yeah. He's a cool dude. He's an old soul, and he's got like and I've only ever hung out with him like a couple times. But like, he's just got this, like, it's almost like he's got this 60-year-old wisdom. Exactly. And he's just like, well, I cannot wait to see what he's like when he's over 60, 70, 80 years old. Cause he's going to have like, he's like one of those guys who would climb up to the mountain to say, what's the meaning of life?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And he's probably figured it out.
But I think that's awesome that you have someone like that in your corner as a business mentor, as a friend, and again, I think I've learned this too I used to be a lot like you too, where like I get so close to people and I think they're like, oh, we got to do everything together. Like we love hard, we fight hard, like it's extreme, right? Yeah. And I realized that no, it's like once I figure out who my authentic self is, like I just need to be me and create like those boundaries, right? And they're healthy boundaries. Sometimes when I first said the word boundary, it always sounded like a bad thing. It sounded like I was shutting people out, like I was putting walls up. But it was really just more like an invisible boundary that like it's like, we can ebb and flow together.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, I need to do, like, for me, it's like I must do X, Y, and Z to feel good enough and confident enough to go lead properly. Like, if I'm not doing those things, then, like, I can't give my business everything.
You'll be in the canoe passed out.
Yeah. I can't give my business everything. I can't come home and still have the energy to, like, give my wife and my kid everything. Like, so it's just like if I hit my non-negotiables, like, on a very consistent basis, which they're so simple. But like if I do that, then there's enough. Like I can burn. I got a super long burn rate. Like I don't get worn down, but I have to hit my basics, my needs for me, and then I can pour out.
When did you decide to write this book?
Probably about a year ago, I decided to do it.
Why?
Therapy. It was honestly the first thing was like, I wanted to close a chapter in my life. Like, I felt like figuring this out for where I am right now. I feel like I have it figured out for right now, just this brief moment of what I'm going through. Like, I have a couple of things, and I wanted to be able to get these stories, get these thoughts out of my mind, get them down on paper, turn them into lessons, and most importantly, number one, I wanted to be able to hand them to my son and be like, this is my story, and here's some lessons, and here's the things I learned, and that was it. I was like, it cost me like $15,000 to write the book, and I was like, I don't care if anybody reads it. Like, if I can get clear and portray character and lessons over a 10-year period of building businesses, losing myself, finding myself, like figuring out what a bad marriage looks like versus what a good one looks like, and those communications, all those things. Like, I talk about all of those things in it. Like, it's just me telling 10 years of life and lessons.
Do you wish your dad would have wrote you a book?
That would have been cool, right? But like, who
did you think about that? Because you lost your dad. Like, right, you could leave a studio right now and go get hit by a text guy texting.
It's like, here's something. And
like, did that go into it at all? Like, to like you having a kid, like, and then thinking like, wow, you lost your dad at such a young age.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I thought about that.
I have
when you were telling me
scarcity.
that. I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, like maybe that's why.
A lot of what I do, I know a root, and a lot of what I do is based in that like scarcity and knowing that like life is short. And I realized I knew I needed to do something. So a little bit over a year ago now, so this would have been July of 2022. I lost one of my best friends, suicide, business owner. Came up with me in the real estate game. We were speaking. We were all over the country together. And some things went sideways. And he had 2 beautiful children. And he just, decided that it wasn't right for him to stay. And I don't agree with it. But I went to his funeral. And when the news came out, there were thousands of people that poured out online. Like, this dude was a national speaker, great speaker, great real estate investor, awesome human, and thousands of people poured out online.
What's his name?
Shane Hunt.
Where's he from?
Columbus. He's actually from Indiana, but he's living in Columbus.
How old was he?
42. 40.
That was last year.
Mm-hmm. Thousands of people pour out online. You changed my life. You did this for me. You did this for me. Oh, I'm gonna miss you. For days, right? I got the news. The night it happened. Told my wife, I don't hey, this is right. We had Weston, my boy. He was very tough. Newborn, cried, colicky for 8-9 months. Like, cried straight. 30 minutes of sleep. So leaving to me was, I didn't do it unless I had to do it. Business-wise, I had a lot of guilt of leaving her. But that was like, I don't know where this funeral is going to be, but honey, like, I'm leaving I need to go for this. And she like knew, like, she was like, he doesn't ask for a lot. So like she was like, yeah, babe, whatever you need. So it was 5 hours away in Indiana. A few days later, I thought there were going to be thousands of people there. I roll into town. I get there. I'm at the beginning of the service, so it's 10 to 12 for the viewing service. And I get there, and I go in, and I see family, and I get to meet family and things like that. And I see the kids, and I walk out, and I call my wife, and I go, there's nobody here. It's like family, hometown friends, like high school friends, like people I have no idea. There was a good amount of people there, but nobody I knew from the real estate social media space that like should have been there. She's like, it's early, babe, you're early, like just grab a coffee, go back over. I go back over at 11, same thing. Like, well, this is really weird. So I come back over right before the service. so me, basically like 4 other people that I knew. The service starts and I look over my buddy and you have to excuse me for this, but I'm like, where the fuck is everybody at? Like now I am at about an 8 out of 10 angry because I'm like, it's all fake. The whole social media space, it's all thousands of people poured out online. There was people, we've been together for 8-9 years. We've traveled the country. We spent so many hours together. And you're telling me 5 of us made an effort to show up to this man's funeral? And I just went through the whole rest of the proceeding like none of it's real.
What do you mean by that? Like when you say he got thousands of messages, I'm assuming like comments like on a post
comments,
or something.
Posts, memories,
so like,
pictures.
and so when you say it's not real, like the people like just say that, but they don't really care. Like they just like post it just to like look cool.
Show up
like,
to his funeral.
they just post it to look cool, right, or something. Is
or
that
like
what you mean
to
by
make
it's fake?
themselves feel better? I don't know what it is, but like,
why do you think people are like that?
I think it's easy, but like, I think it makes them look good, right? Because then on their posts, people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for your loss. But then you didn't show up to the funeral. And I called my wife. I was angry. I was happy for this new perspective, this freedom, this joy, but sad and cry. I just had every bit of emotion, but I said to her, I've never been more clear in my life that all of this doesn't matter. And I was like, it was just another one of those like I'm coming home moments. And like, yes, I want to do this. I want to be out there, but like I want people to actually have freedom when they do it, you know, and not tie themselves to the likes, to this and that, because that's not real. What's real is going to the funeral, you know, and being with those people in person, the emotion, the experience, and like being a part of that, not posting something to get off easy and have other people feel bad for you. And that's been that was the final stake in the ground on just like the negative part of social media and this influence and like how we feel like we have to do certain things to get respect, to get likes from other people because that's what they like. You know, it's that whole post of like, you start a business, you get 2 likes, you get a new job, you get a couple hundred. So like you think like getting a new job is good, right? Or like whatever, but it's just not the things that are good to you. So you actually start to influence yourself based on the influence that you're getting. And that was like, that went all the way back to my first 6 years. If I got a video that had 5,000-6,000 views, then I would do more of that. But that wasn't me being authentic to me, you know? And so that was where I realized and I figured out, like, it wasn't me. So like now, like when I'm coming back out on this run, like this is me and I'm putting it out there and I'm out. Like I put a team together to do this so that I'm not going to be involved or get feedback, positive or negative, from what we are doing. Like I'm going to be real. I'm going to be me. And that's non-negotiable.
Why are you doing it? Like, why are you going to go back out on the circuit? You know, we call it the circuit, right? Like,
Yeah.
Why are you going to go back out and speak on different stages? Why are you going to start maybe podcasting? Why are you, is this the only book that you're going to write? Are you going to write more books? Like, why are you going to get back out and come back out of the shadows?
So 2 things. One, I do love it. There is, and you know this, there is something about a high of getting off of a stage when you know, like, you just crushed. Comedians talk about it, singers talk about it. Once you've been on stage, there's something about it. The only other thing for me that does that is going to the starting gate at a motocross race. You know, there's just those 2 feelings that I chase. So that's one big reason is I do love it. It definitely also scratches a little bit of ego. Like it feels good to feel good influencing people in a positive way or inspiring people in a positive way through your story or your experiences. Second, it's an opportunity, I think, to really make some changes in the industry, specifically for real estate investors, because Shane's not the only friend I lost over the last few years. I lost 6 different friends to suicide. And
when you say friends, like
people I have met.
Are they really friends, or are they just people that like are in those circles, right? Like are they the kind of guys that like if you needed something, are they going to fly to Pittsburgh and help you?
So friends in the way that I would look at friends now, it's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know, because like, I always wonder, because we have our Facebook friends, then we have like, maybe the 3 friends that like we could probably call up, like when the wife says, hey babe, you can go out tonight, like, all right, shoot, like I don't even know who to call.
Yeah, friends in the way of like my closest friends aren't really even in Pittsburgh, which is pretty cool, just because of that.
Right.
But yeah, no, they're definitely from that previous world. But like, I got to know them.
Yeah,
like I knew their families.
It's almost like kind of like high school, at least. Like
exactly.
it's like we lost a buddy.
But it's a stage of life, and like I think you should carry people through your stages, right? And not everybody, but certain people. Yeah. And these were people that were carrying through, and it's just like, and when I go into the rooms and I talk now, it's really cool of like, not only can I be like, hey, listen, like your small business, and it's not just real estate, but like your small business doesn't need to own you. Like your employees don't need to own you. You don't need to be miserable. Like this should be fun. Here's my story to get you off your ass and make these changes today, because life is short and none of this is real, as far as the media world and the influence world, for how it should influence you. Do what you want to do for you. Here's some tactics to take control of your business, get some freedom, and most importantly, some boundaries in place. Basically, put some lifestyle first into your business and have more fun. Like you shouldn't, we do this thing, entrepreneurship business. Like it shouldn't be miserable and barely making it for 20, 30 years. Like go get a job. Leave it at your job. Like we as entrepreneurs, we don't realize that like if you're making like $100,000 a year and you're working 48 hours a week, like that's not what you got into this business to do. Like you got into it most likely for some form of freedom. Well, there's more freedom in a 9-to-5 making 6 figures because you can leave work there. It's with us all the time. So like for me, it's like, hey, like I'm gonna show, like I could show people like how to kind of set those boundaries up in a similar way that like you've done too, because we both started off operating out of the traction model. Now I think we both.
Well, I wish I really started out. No, I only been doing that for like 3 or 4 years, but I wish
started out that way.
I wish I would, but you know what? Back then I would have never went fast enough though. See, I would have never got it started.
Right.
Because I will say traction, it's like one of those things, the EOS models like slow you down to speed you up. And like over this last 3 years, it's like, all right, I feel like I'm being super patient, letting the team work, and it's like, it goes against like my natural built-in hardwiring. But it's been kind of cool to like kind of get that balanced out. But I definitely agree with you that, your identity shouldn't be tied to anything, anyone, any person, any company, because that's all. They all have ebbs and flows. Your company's going to go up and down. Your wife's mood's going to go up and down. Your kid's going to go up and down. Your friends are going to go up and down. Some are going to die. Some are going to leave you. Some aren't going to show up for you. Some are going to be there every day for you. Like you can't. If you attach yourself to those things, I've learned that that's where the danger is, and you have to be grounded in who you are and be authentic. Right? What other like. I appreciate you sharing everything, but is there anything else that you did over the last couple of years to help you get to this place where you're at now? Like any other tips or tricks for anybody listening that might be going through something other than, go to the woods and stop drinking?
Well, look. I mean, there's a reality in that, like what that woods trip was, and traction would refer to it as a clarity break. Most people never take the time to stop and look around. Be like, observe where you are, get some true awareness on like, okay, and take stock in like, what do I love about my personal life? What do I love about my work life? What don't I like? We talk about like your delegation table, accountability charts, like all of those things that you should be doing on a quarterly basis if you're in any point of growth mode. I think even now too, where I'm at is like, I'm in like growth mode, but also like stabilization at the same time. So I'm going through and learning patience with my team and letting them take some of those projects on. But yeah, no, like a lot of our stuff has definitely stemmed from the basis of traction, and just putting delegation, truly learning how to delegate, like bring in the right people. So many of like when you start out, we have to like scab our companies together until you finally hit like a certain point where you can truly bring in like specialists. And I just heard this the other day, and it was like, you start off with generalists and then you earn, specialists in these departments over time. And soon enough, you look around and you have all specialists. And that's kind of where I'm getting to now.
What's the future look like for Ryan, the person? Like, what do you, you're 30 years old. Wow. I mean, I can't, like, yeah, I was just moving to Pittsburgh when I was 30.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's like cool for me to think about, and I think about it now, is like, I'm having more fun doing this stuff, like as far as business and just life in general. Like I said, I think for a moment right now, I have it figured out. So like, I know where I, like, as far as business goes, like we're growing our brokerage. I want to be the #1 independent brokerage in Pittsburgh with the least amount of agents. Like that's a goal there for that business. Have a great team, have fun. Our home buying company and rental company, like that goal is to go to 500 single family homes. And now I'm like, I want to do cool shit with my friends. Like I want to do business with my friends. I'm kind of at that like
what? Like what do you like when you're 40, okay? We do a podcast again. Yeah. What's it going to look like? What are some of the things that you're either gonna hope to do or hope to learn? Like what things do you still want to learn about life?
Yeah, I want to look around. I want to look around very, very simply. Look around and say, I love doing all of this with everyone I've got around me. My teams, my wife, my kids. From like a business perspective, and then for me personally, I gotta hit my measurables, man. I gotta get my workout in. I gotta learn something new. Eat clean enough to where I can eat dirty on the weekends. Hopefully I have a couple more kids. I'm still riding dirt bikes, and my like one of my big goals, say 40 and 10 years from now, when my boy will be 12. I'll say working on having some more. I want to have enough freedom in my businesses and my ventures to go be all in on that season of like dad. Coaching, sports, being involved in that, like basically like it's like kind of like I want to be like wealthy enough to mentally give myself the freedom to go all in, like on basically like really volunteer type stuff, right? At that level. Yeah. Awesome. Be all in with my kids. Like I want to take my kids to school, and pick them up, just be there, because that was a big thing that obviously you lose people like that. You
can't ever get back to your kids' childhood, so that's gonna be awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that stuff. That's really good. I do want to get a hot take from you about where we're at with the just economy, the real estate market, like all the I've seen a bunch of gunslingers come in over the past 4 or 5 years into this real estate world. It looked easy for a lot of for many years. Well, then social media, from everything I'm learning about you, like half of it's fake anyway. Even when it was easy, half of them weren't even doing it when it was easy.
Yeah.
So like with interest rates going up, with the fear in the economy, like where do you see? Like, what do you think is going to happen over the next 3 to 4 years, or even maybe the next 6 months? Like, what do you like? Because people bought a lot of bad deals, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of I'm starting to just be aware, because I'm starting to see the opportunities come up to me, like where people are like, "Hey, Fish, you want to buy this from me?" I gotta get out. I just gotta get out of this because I got to pay this off. I'm hearing stories about just people are like robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're moving things around. Like, where do you think this is all gonna head?
I think the people that were greedy when the getting was good, are gonna pay for it. Just for an example, 2019 to 2021, those 2-year periods where we were all building portfolios. A lot of guys took 80% debt, 25-year amortization, So, for real estate people, like they basically took all of the money they could possibly take, stretched out their payments, and then went and spent it on dumb stuff. Not like actually building teams and things like that, and protecting the equity in these properties. They built houses of cards, and now we're coming up in 2024 to 2026. You're coming up on all these rate resets, and not only rate resets, but they didn't renovate their properties fully up front. So when you have all these expenses that are going to come back over at turnover, things like that, they're not going to have the equity to pull back out. And then the cash flow when the rate goes up isn't going to be able to support the portfolio. And then you'll really watch some good deals come out. That I know will happen for a fact, just is because rates won't be back at what they were then. So that's going to happen. As far as an economy, let me put it that way. The guys that were greedy in that way, that will happen to them.
What's going to happen? What are they going to do? What's going to give me like that type of guy?
I think there's going to be a lot of bankruptcy. And then
what do they do next?
I think the banks will take back a lot of deals, and I think a lot of those guys, depending on the debt they took, whether it was non-recourse or if they personally guaranteed it, it's going to depend on how screwed they are. But in the single family 1 to 4 space, that's all full recourse, personally guaranteed debt. So if you were greedy during that period of time, then they're probably scrambling right now for cash and, to be able to prepare for that rate reset, or they don't even know it's coming, or what's coming. We did all of our stuff on 20-year, we took 70 to 75%. We were like, hey, this is the nest egg, not the cash cow, your business.
Conservative,
yeah.
What so what about all this big money, right? All the big money, these billionaires and these private equity companies, these big conglomerations that are buying up the housing market. They're going to be the ones, they're sitting on a ton of cash, right? Because it just makes the rich get richer, right? And I see the Jeff Bezoses of the world, right? They're going to need to invest, right? They're going to just when these guys all go bust, who's going to be there to buy, which then I think is actually even going to make it then harder for the average American, right, to be able to even get into home ownership. Do you think that's coming we're going to be in a rental society?
So the biggest thing that's happened, as far as you want a hot take and hot news, is that, and by the time this comes out, it'll probably be old news, but hedge funds shut down for a 7-month period, because the rates were climbing. They didn't know where they were going to settle, and all of their rates are tied to actual bigger markets. So they paused. In the last week alone, 4 different hedge funds have come back into Pittsburgh and reopening doors, rehiring people, things like that. And it's just we're looking around and going, okay, time is right now. For us as a smaller operation, we're the deals are never going to get better than they are right now. But I'm mindset wise, I'm a big create your own economy guy anyway. So it's we'll always find deals. We'll always navigate through it. And Arch, this is an Arch thing here, is he's like, whatever you want to find, man, you can find it. You want to find that the economy's going to hell in a handbasket, you can find it. You want to find that it's amazing and great, you're going to find it. So when he shuts down any conversation I have with them on the macro. He's like, I don't care. What do leads look like this week? Are we buying houses? I know what construction costs are, and he's like, that's all he cares about is what's going on there. So
that's cool. It's kind of cool to think about, because I just feel it's gonna. And we're in a good age range where we get to experience this again. We're gonna I didn't really get to play in 2008. I didn't really get to see I was just barely. I was barely surviving. I was so it's just interesting. At my age and at your age, it's all right, we can at least watch, participate a little bit, because all we're doing is building up skills then for the next wave. Because we're scenario building. Yeah. Same
thing we did during COVID was just okay. Well, if this happens, what would we do?
Yeah.
If this happens, what will we do? Well, I'm scenario building, because like I said, you don't want to, it's okay, if rates go down, if inventory comes in the market, how would we adjust? Because now I don't need to do outbound marketing to sellers anymore. If I have inventory on market, cool, I can focus efforts there. You know, if construction does something or whatever, like we're just looking at different scenarios.
If like, you know, a big billion-dollar company came to you and said, I want to buy all your assets. I want to take you out of the game. I want to retire you, right? At least from, you know, this.
Yeah.
What do you do next?
Good question. We actually tried. There was a hedge fund a couple years ago, and we were like, hey, we'll just buy us, and then we'll throw on some khakis and stuff for a couple years. Yeah, that was.
Well, that's definitely happening in the roofing space. That's happening in all the trades, all the residential trades, because they realize that it's.
We were working that out, and now we're glad we didn't, because we're here and they're not. But if I sold everything right now, then
what would you do next? Let's go buy bigger deals, or like.
I mean, from a day-to-day perspective, I would do
what I do now.
If
you were in real estate, though, like let's just say, like what else would you do? Like if I told you couldn't buy or sell another property the rest of your life, someone gives you $100 million or whatever your stuff's worth,
I'd probably come run marketing for Big Fish.
All right, I was just curious. No, that's so you like enjoy helping people market, right?
Yeah. No, I love marketing, operations, sales. Honestly, I would probably go work at one of those big funds.
Yeah,
like because it's my space.
It would be a cool experience too.
It's
like,
my space.
I'm thinking like, yeah, man, I'd be like, all right. I've already played this game of entrepreneurship. That sounds cool, but I've never like what's a hedge fund? What's it look to like work for like these rich guys like in this like hedge fund and like hang out like on Martha's Vineyard and like
if you could bring grassroots like operations like bootstrap.
Yeah, because those guys have no idea what that stuff looks like.
Like I'll give you an example, and I know we're probably
we're way over, but we might just cut this and make this a whole separate segment. So
there was a hedge fund that came into the market, and they wanted to do direct to seller marketing, and so they asked us to help them out, and I was like, cool. Like, how much have you spent so far to date? They said $1 million. I was like, wow, you must have bought like 200 houses off of that. They had bought one house off market. I was like, oh my God, holy cow. I'm like, this is crazy. And that was like a realization moment of like the money that they have.
Yeah, they got money, we got skills.
So I'm like, I couldn't imagine how much I would get paid if I went in there and actually, I would be like, hey, you pay me $750,000 of your marketing budget. I'll use $250 of it, and I'll crush whatever you're about to do.
Yeah, no, that's cool. One other thing I do to wrap up all the podcasts. First season, I asked a different set of questions. This season, I'm basically saying, who are 3 people that you would be interested in interviewing in a podcast format like this? And they could be famous. They could just be regular people. Like, who's on your top 3 list that you want to interview?
Good question. I'd love to have a conversation with Rogan. He's like one of my favorite, just like human beings, obviously. Probably Ed Milet. And you might think I would say Frisella, but like I feel like he puts so much out there that I wouldn't want to do that. And then like obviously, yeah, man. They got to be alive. Like,
well, probably, Just I'm just curious, like who you're interested in, and
I never thought about interviewing somebody. Usually, I'm on these, so yeah, it'd probably be Ed, him, and the guy from there's a guy who runs the Dad Edge podcast. That his name is Larry, and I really enjoy his podcast a lot.
What's it called?
It's the Dad Edge.
The Dad Edge.
They bring on a lot of people. Him, actually, I know my third. It wouldn't be Andy Frisella. It would be Sal. It would be his brother Sal. So yeah, that would be my third. I think Andy's amazing. I think Sal's the magic.
There you go.
That's my get there.
That's cool, man. How do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you?
Right now, Facebook, Instagram. Probably by the time this goes, to be theperfectaverageday.com. That's where you'll be able to find the book. And if you get the book, that'd be awesome. I'll ship it to you. And most importantly for me, like I'd just love to hear if it does impact you in a positive way. Like you'll have a way to get it to hold me in the back end of that. But I just love to hear your story. If you do read the book.
We appreciate you being here.
Thanks, man.
If you guys got value out of this podcast, like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate it. We're trying to get over 1,000 subscribers, and everyone counts. So we'll see you guys on the next one.